Good morning, grade 11s. Today I want us to continue with our topic 13, presenting information. We have different kinds of reports. Information can be presented in the form of tables, which can then be converted into graphs to make it clearer. On page 150 of our textbook, we have different types of graphs whereby information from page 149 is presented. Then it's possible that you can present business information on a table and then convert it into a graph to make it a little bit clear. Now we have to go on to the next slide. On the next slide, we have different kinds of reports. We have informational reports, reports that present data without analysis or recommendations, and their primary function is to provide information. These informational reports, the purpose of them is to present information. Then we also have analytical reports. They are reports that provide data and conclusions and are analytical because the presenter also supplies recommendations. Those are analytical reports. And then we have preparation of a report. The main sources of business information are the news, reports in newspapers and business-orientated publications. Reports, those are the main sources of such business information. We have the news, reports in newspapers and business-orientated publications. We also have market research, reports generated internally or purchased from professional market research businesses. We also have credit and financial information. For instance, on the credit worthiness of customers, suppliers and competitors, or the share prices on the JSE. JSE, Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Then here, the credit worthiness of customers, suppliers, competitors, or the share prices on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And then company and executive profiles published in annual reports of public companies listed on the JSE. Now, the industry, the country, and economic analysis. It assists the business to identify challenges, threats, and opportunities. And then we have the format of a report. Letter format, prepared on office stationery with a letterhead. A letter report contains a date, inside address, greeting, and complimentary clause. That is a letter format report. Then the memo format report, for short informal reports that stay within organizations. The memo format is suitable. Short informal reports, it's gonna stay within an organization, it's going nowhere. That's why it doesn't have an address. And then manuscript format, writers will use this format for longer and more formal reports. Writers use this format for longer and more formal reports. That is the manuscript reports. Then printed forms used for repetitive data collection and presentation, such as monthly sales reports, staff performance appraisals, trading stock inventories, and personnel and financial reports. Those are printed forms. And then we have the electronic format. Computers allow writers to produce and distribute reports in electronic form, not in hard copy. That is the electronic format of a report. To go on to the next slide. On the next slide, we have the components of formal reports. The following components are usually present in formal report. Title page, table of contents, list of figures, executive summary, body, conclusion, recommendations, appendix, and references. Those are the components of formal reports. And then business information and analysis. We have steps in report writing. Step number 1, analyze the problem. What is the problem? Prepare a written problem statement to clarify the task. Step number 2, anticipate the audience and issues. Keep in mind that because the report is in writing, it may be distributed to people in the organization for whom it was never intended. So I anticipate the audience and issues. Bear in mind, this report might be in the hands of people that it was never intended for. Then prepare a work plan. Start early and allow enough time for brainstorming and preliminary research. Start as early as possible so that you can have enough time for brainstorming and preliminary research. Do the research in order to gather data. Do not depend only on the internet do research in order to gather information. Then organize, analyze, interpret, and illustrate the data. Consider the purpose of the different visual aids. Step number 6, put together the first draft of the report. Print the first draft and only read it 24 hours later. Step number 7, revise, proofread, and evaluate. Ask a fellow colleague to read the report. You must revise it, you must proofread it, and you must also evaluate it and make sure there are no mistakes. And then after that, ask a fellow colleague to read that report. Then on the next slide, composing a flyer. Flyers and brochures are popular ways of advertising services and products. Then we have guidelines for composing a flyer. Write a title that will attract the casual reader's attention. The title must be attractive. It must be able to catch the eye of the reader. Then use graphics to attract attention. It has to be colorful. Focus on the benefits of the product or service. What's the main aim of that product or service? How is it going to help the customer? Then refer to happy customers. Then you must use text boxes if space allows. Do not get too complicated. It must be straightforward. Let someone proofread the contents. Use bright paper and black text if budget does not allow for color printing. Offer a discount on the service or product. Those are the guidelines for composing a flyer. It mustn't be too complicated. It must be colorful. And then you try by all means to offer a discount on the service or the product. And then the title of that flyer must be able to catch the eye of the reader. On the next slide, we have responding to questions in a non-aggressive and professional manner. In our textbook, it is on page 155. You must listen. The presenter should listen to all parts of the question. Writing down the questions will also assist you to remember all the parts that need response. Now you have to respond to questions. Remember, in a non-aggressive and professional manner. This doesn't mean you are better than those people who are going to ask you questions. Then understand. If the question is not clear, the presenter should ask the person asking the question to clarify. Repeating the question to the person often helps. Remember, sometimes you are going to answer a question that is not clear. You didn't understand that question, but you are failing to ask the a person who's asking that question to repeat so that you can understand. Make notes and answer all questions. If a member of the audience asks 2 or 3 questions, make notes of the questions while the person is talking. You cannot remember everything at all times. So you better make notes of questions. Then make sure that you answer all the questions. Communicate and involve. Be positive and enthusiastic when responding. Keep answers brief and focused. The presenter should also not allow a two-way discussion to develop with the person asking the question. To prevent this, repeat the question to the whole audience before attempting to answer it. Remember, be positive. Then keep the answers brief and focused. This is not a two-way discussion anymore. You are answering the question. Repeat the question before you start answering it. Apologize for errors. If a member of the audience correctly points out that you have made a mistake, then acknowledge your mistake and apologize. You are not perfect. No one is perfect. So if they show that you have made a mistake here, just acknowledge that mistake and apologize. Then make a respond. Make eye contact with the whole audience while answering a question. But afterwards, check with the person who asked the question whether the answer was sufficient. Make eye contact with the whole audience when answering questions. Invite follow-up questions. If you run out of time, you can invite the audience to continue discussing the issue via email or even via telephone. So you have to cut that question and then you can contact the audience one by one, discussing those issues via email or telephone. On the next slide, which is the last slide, what to avoid during question and answer sessions. Avoid having a standard response ready to answer most questions. These are also on page 155. They are also on page 155. The last heading there. Do not make a second presentation when answering a question. Do not argue and try to prove that you are right or know best. Do not get aggressive or defensive. Take time to think before answering a difficult question. Be prepared to admit that you do not have the answer to a question. Do not argue with someone who does not agree with you. Do not argue with someone who does not agree with you. Right, and then this is the end of our lesson or topic 13, presenting business information. Then you have end of topic questions. That is the activity that you have to do today. We will see each other again tomorrow. Good luck.